Have you ever wondered how these huge organizations or, even the really agile small ones manage to not just survive, but actually thrive? Especially with all the constant change and unexpected stuff flying at them, how do they navigate that minefield? Today, we're really going to dig into enterprise risk management, or ERM. And specifically, we're zoning in on the performance part of the CSO framework, the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations. This isn't just dry theory. It's about the actual strategies businesses use to handle risk and, well, protect and grow their value. So our goal today is to break down how companies actually identify risks, figure out how serious they are, decide which ones to tackle first, how they respond, and then kind of get that big picture view. Think of it as a shortcut to understanding corporate resilience, what keeps them going. Okay, before we dive deeper, just a quick reminder. This deep dive is based on material from Farhat lectures. All the content, the examples, everything we talk about today comes from the resources over at farhatlectures.com. So if you're an accounting student prepping for the CPA or already a professional, definitely check out the website for more practice, videos, and support on this stuff. A big thank you to Professor Farhat for providing all this great material. All right, so we're going to walk through 5 key principles under this performance umbrella. Finding the risks, assessing them, prioritizing, responding, and then that whole portfolio view thing. Okay, let's kick this off. Before you can manage risk, you obviously have to know what it is, right? So how do organizations even begin to spot these potential problems? Seems like a massive task.
Well, it's interesting because in ERM, risk isn't just, bad stuff happening. It's defined as pretty much anything that could stop an operation from hitting its strategies and objectives.
Ah, okay. So it's broader than just avoiding disasters.
Exactly. It's anything that impacts reaching your goals, could be a threat, could even be missing a big opportunity because you weren't prepared.
That makes sense. And the source material gives some really good tangible examples. Things like rapid tech changes, right? Like AI or big data suddenly making your way of doing things obsolete.
Totally. Or shifts in what consumers want. Remember the big push towards healthier foods? If you were all in on sugary snacks, that was a huge risk.
Yeah, I remember that. What else?
Things like natural resources running out if your business depends on them, or changes in the workforce like the big shift to remote work or ongoing labor shortages. That impacts how you operate.
And demographic shifts too, right?
Yeah.
If your main customer base changes.
Precisely. Or even external things like climate change impacts, new government rules popping up, tax changes.
So a lot of it comes from outside the company then.
A good chunk does, yeah. But there are internal risks too, like financial ones. Can you actually pay your bills short term? That's liquidity risk. Or can you borrow money if you need it? All that stuff.
Okay, so there's this huge universe of potential risks.
Yeah.
How do you actually find them? You can't just sit around guessing, can you?
Right. You need practical approaches. And the source mentions quite a few, like using big data itself. Maybe you notice website visits dropping sharply from one region. That's data pointing to a potential issue. Maybe a new competitor popped up there, or something political is happening.
Huh. For data is both a risk and a tool. Clever.
It can be. Another way is having a dedicated risk officer or committee, formalizing it.
Makes sense.
Or even just paying close attention to day-to-day stuff, like reading customer complaints, the example of the hotel manager constantly seeing feedback like not enough towels or breakfast was cold.
I like that one.
They're spotting and fixing small risks constantly before they become big reputation problems.
So those little things really add up. It's risk management at the micro level.
It really is. You can also, ask your employees, use questionnaires. They often see things management misses, attending industry events, talking to experts, tracking industry data, all important.
What about challenging assumptions?
Definitely. Asking what if scenarios, like what if our main supplier goes bust? And finally, keeping a running list, a risk inventory. The main idea is just you have to find these threats systematically.
Okay, so identifying them is step one, mapping out all those potential landmines. But like you said, not all risks are the same size, are they? Some are small potatoes, others are, well, company killers. How do you figure out how big the threat really is?
Yeah, that's assessment. And it's not just one level. You look at risk entity-wide, like the whole company, but also down at the division level, operating units, even functions, and you always tie it back to the strategy and objectives.
So a problem in one department might not be a big deal for the whole company.
Exactly. Think about that airline example. They face tons of risks. A plane crash, obviously huge. An economic downturn, also big. But then there's a clunky website, maybe customer service hiccups, cost of fuel, dirty restrooms.
Right, a plane crash is like existential Entity-level devastation.
Absolutely. Compared to, say, a dirty restroom. Annoying, yes. Bad for the brand, maybe little, but it's an operational issue, not
Ah,
something that sinks the airline,
uh,
or headphones not working on one flight. Minor stuff. Understanding the severity is key.
okay, so severity. What exactly goes into measuring that?
Good question. Severity usually combines three things. First, impact. How bad are the consequences if it happens? Second, likelihood. What's the chance, the probability of it actually occurring? That can be like low, medium, high, or even a percentage, like 10% chance.
Okay, impact and likelihood. Makes sense.
And the third one, which is sometimes missed, is time to recover. How long does the risk stick around? How long does it take the company to get back on its feet? And recovery isn't just operations, it's reputation too. Sometimes that takes the longest.
Ah, that's a really important point. The lingering effects. And how do you actually assess these? Qualitative, quantitative.
Both are used. Qualitative is often quicker, cheaper interviews, surveys, looking at what competitors are doing, benchmarking. Quantitative is more number crunchy, using things like Monte Carlo simulations, running thousands of scenarios, or decision trees to map out possibilities.
And you have to keep reassessing, right? It's not a one and done thing.
Absolutely critical. Business changes, sales go up or down, new rivals appear, people leave. The severity of a risk yesterday might be totally different today.
Got it. And then there's this distinction between different types of risk levels.
Huh.
Inherent, target, actual.
Right. So inherent risk is the raw risk, basically, before you do anything about it. Then target residual risk is the level of risk the company is willing to accept after controls are in place. It's the goal.
Okay.
And actual residual risk is what's really left over after you've implemented your responses. Ideally, your actual risk should be lower than your target risk. You want a buffer.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. Visualizing all this, the source talks about using a heat map. How does that work?
The heat map is a great tool, yeah. Super visual. Imagine a grid. One axis is likelihood, how likely is it? The other is impact, how bad is it?
So you plot your risks on this grid. High likelihood, high impact is the danger zone, top right maybe?
Usually, yeah. That's the red zone you want to avoid or manage aggressively. Low likelihood, low impact is the green zone. Bottom left, less worrying.
And the airline crash example, where would that sit?
Very low likelihood, hopefully,
Sure.
but extremely high impact. So it would be in a corner representing that maybe bottom right or top left, depending on how you set up the axes. The goal for any company is to take actions that push risks down and to the left on that map. Reduce the likelihood, reduce the impact.
Okay, that visual makes a lot of sense for prioritizing. Which brings us to the next step. You've found the risks, you've sized them up. But you can't fix everything at once, can you? Resources are limited. How do you decide what gets attention first?
Exactly. That's the core reason for prioritizing. You have finite resources. Money, people, time. It's all limited. So you have to figure out which risks, given their severity, absolutely need action now because they clash with your overall risk appetite, how much risk you're fundamentally okay with.
And the source mentions 5 factors that help with that decision, beyond just severity.
Right, these add more nuance. First, complexity. How hard is it actually going to be to deal with this risk? A really complex one might take longer or cost more, affecting priority.
Okay.
Second, velocity. How fast can this risk hit or spread? A social media scandal blows up in hours, right? That needs immediate attention, versus maybe a slow demographic shift that gives you more time to plan.
Velocity, that's a good one. What else?
Third, persistence. How long will the impact last? How long is the recovery? Think about COVID for airlines. Again, the impact persisted for a long, long time. That makes it a high priority, ongoing concern. Fourth is adaptability. How well can the organization actually adjust? We mentioned universities shifting online quickly during COVID, high adaptability. Airlines couldn't do online flights, so their adaptability to that specific shock was low, making the risk more critical.
Right. And the last one.
Recovery. How quickly can you actually eliminate the risk and get back to normal? So you weigh all these complexity, velocity, persistence, adaptability, recovery alongside severity to make those tough calls.
And it's interesting, the source notes that even if 2 risks have similar severity, one might still get prioritized higher.
Yeah, that can happen. Let's stick with the airline. Maybe damage to customer reputation and a drawn-out labor negotiation are both rated as severe, but maybe the reputation damage gets higher priority because losing customers hits revenue right away, potentially faster or harder than the immediate financial impact of the negotiation. So the nature of the impact matters too.
Ah, okay. So once you have prioritized, you got to do something. What are the main ways companies actually respond?
Good question. There are basically 5 common responses you see. First is acceptance. Sometimes the risk is small enough, it's within your appetite. Or Honestly, there's nothing you can reasonably do. Like COVID, for many, you accept it's happening and focus on managing consequences.
Just gonna roll with it.
Pretty much. Second, avoidance. This is where you take action to get rid of the risk completely. Maybe you
Yeah.
stop selling a risky product line, or you pull out of a certain market, or you ensure you're complying with a regulation to avoid fines. You exit the situation.
Okay, get rid of it. Then there's pursuit. Sounds counterintuitive.
It does, but it makes sense sometimes. Pursuit means you intentionally take on more risk because the potential reward is high enough and it's still within your overall tolerance. Like launching a bold new product, risky, but could lead to huge growth.
So, calculated risk-taking. What else?
Fourth is reduction. This is probably the most common. You take steps to lower the severity, the likelihood, or the impact. Think installing better cybersecurity to reduce data breach impact or adding safety features to equipment, moving it down on the heat map.
And number 5, sharing or transfer.
Right. You shift some or all of the risk to someone else. Buying insurance is the classic example, but also things like hedging financial exposures, entering a joint venture where you share the risk with a partner, or outsourcing a particularly risky part of your operation.
When they're picking one of these responses, that cost versus benefit thing must be huge. But the source had that really striking point about it.
Yeah. The cost is usually easy to see. You spend X dollars on, say, insurance or new equipment. The benefit, often invisible, because the benefit is the bad thing not happening.
That September 11th analogy was powerful. If they'd mandated reinforced cockpit doors on September 10th, everyone sees the cost. But the benefit preventing the attacks would have been unseen, unprovable almost, because the event didn't happen.
Exactly. It makes justifying preventative spending really hard sometimes. You also have to consider the business context, maybe competitive pressures, and sometimes regulations just force your hand. You have to respond a certain way. But the key is the response should be proportionate within reason for the risk's size.
Okay, so we've gone from identifying, assessing, prioritizing, responding to individual risks.
Yeah.
But ERM isn't just playing whack-a-mole, is it? It's about the bigger picture. What's this portfolio view all about?
Yeah, the portfolio view is crucial. It's basically the entity-wide perspective, looking at all the risks together. It's the result of doing all those other steps, identifying, assessing, prioritizing, responding, and then stepping back to see how the company's total remaining risk, the residual risk, lines up with its overall risk appetite.
So it's about how all the pieces fit together.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Are you taking on too much risk overall, even if individual risks seem managed? Or are different risks interacting in unexpected ways? It's about the whole interconnected web.
And the source mentioned different levels of how integrated this view is.
Yeah.
From minimal to full.
Right. It shows the maturity of an ERM program. Minimal integration is basically reactive, dealing with risks one by one as they pop up, not really linking them strategically, like putting out fires. Limited integration is a bit better, maybe grouping risks by category, like operational risks or financial risks. Partial integration starts linking risks to specific business objectives, like risks associated with launching a new product.
Getting closer.
Yeah. But the goal, the most mature level, is full integration. That is the portfolio view. It's a complete composite view across the whole entity, linking risk to the overall strategy. You understand how pulling one string affects the whole web, the potential cascading effects. That's where you really want to be.
And how do companies actually check how changes might affect that whole portfolio?
They use different techniques. Benchmarking, comparing their risk profile to peers. Scenario analysis, what if interest rates jump 2%? Or what if our main market has a recession? Stress testing is pushing those scenarios to extremes. What if there's a massive cyber attack, A&D, a supply chain collapse? It helps see where the systemic weaknesses are.
Wow, okay. That was definitely a deep dive. We've really covered the whole journey within ERM's performance piece, from just spotting potential trouble to sizing it up, making tough choices, acting, and then seeing that whole strategic picture.
It's quite a process, isn't it? And I think the key thing really isn't just memorizing the steps, but understanding why each step matters and how they connect. That allows for that critical thinking, that proactive approach, which is just vital today. Things change so fast.
Absolutely. Which leads us to our final thought for you listening in. Now that you've heard how organizations try to manage their whole portfolio of risks, think about your own life or work. Is there one risk maybe related to a goal, your career, even just a project that, after hearing all this, you might look at a bit differently? Maybe reassess how severe it really is, or think about a different way to respond. Something to chew on. Join us next time on The Deep Dive as we keep unpacking complex topics and giving you that shortcut to really understanding them. Until then,
Keep digging for those insights.